Yeah, oh, great, a wonderful. I'll send you a mock up, like a person study, sense of scale. Yeah, so.
GHI.
And they're like.
Soft GHI sign.
While we're sitting.
There is it.
Yeah, I have to, and know that I need it. It's definitely in my office. Yeah, and. Where are right? This residential.
Well, no, have something.
There's still, I'm just letting you know, there's.
Yeah, well, I'm aware. There's other rules that signs. Listen, when they want to order this most stuff. I said, oh, temporary. Oh. No. He said, I want.
About 3 o'clock.
Michelle didn't sign it, but I think you know who
I
she is.
got Michelle. Thank you very much. And I know you too, Paul. It's just, there might be some people I don't know, so that's fine.
I think it's great, it just. Tell me what that QR code was for.
Oh, no, that's not all. I've got, no, this is all,
Okay.
and there'll be some just cool stuff.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, it's,
I wish
this is ChatGPT.
Oh, he's with.
Because I couldn't.
What's this for this stuff?
Yeah, exactly, that's all I want, so. Thank you, I'll call him.
This is the. There's all the tower people on the house. Yeah.
Jen.
Hmm.
Something like.
I tried to reach up and get it, but I just got my fingertips and couldn't quite get it down. Oh, you could get it down. No, the dead clock.
No.
No, because
You call
I
it.
brought the folder, I didn't touch it,
Not
but
bad,
I
it's
bet
running.
I have a 6 o'clock.
Is it running
So I
again?
would have to switch.
Oh, yeah.
No question.
Heard of it.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. I would make a motion, we approve the minutes of the September 25th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Second that,
Is there any other discussion? They were fantastic.
as always.
Oh, my
Make
God.
sure you put that in a
Thank you.
minute.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
I guess we'll do this under communications. I had a letter and a petition brought to me Monday, late Monday, asking that the Board of Selectmen reconsider the placement of the EV charger in the bathrooms at Nick Platt Field. And that was signed by 48 residents encompassing Church Street, New Preston Hill, and Hinkle.
Well,
For a reason? Well, yeah, you want me to, let me read the letter. So to the Board of Selectmen, we, the undersigned residents in Preston, respectfully express our concerns regarding the installation of EV charging stations in our neighborhood. While we support sustainable energy initiatives, the siting plan for these chargers raises serious issues that require reconsideration. Number one, increased outside traffic. Chargers will draw non-resident vehicles into our neighborhood, creating congestion and potential safety risks. Proximity to sensitive sites, the proposed location, including in front of Nick Platt Field and a children's park, historic New Preston Congregational Church, local residential housing will negatively impact spaces that should remain protected. Lack of consultations. Residents were not meaningfully engaged before this decision, despite a long-term impact on our community. We request the municipality postpone the planned installation, conduct a forum with residents, consider alternative locations such as commercial corridors, municipal lots, non-residential zones. We appreciate your attention and look forward to a collaborative solution. Like I said, had roughly 48 signatures with more to come. I presented this Monday night to the Parks and Rec Commission, and Parks and Rec unanimously said we really would rather not put this up there.
Oh, I guess we'll have to talk about that.
I mean, I think that many residents in that small of an area, you know,
Yeah,
Sure.
um,
and Parks and Rec being unanimous, that holds a lot of weight with me too.
yeah, and it's not. We're not hung to one location, whereas, you know, we talked about other places and.
Well,
Um,
just to be clear, the idea behind it was, it's not for residents. I mean, residents, if you own an electric car, you should be able to charge it at your house. The idea was for economic development to help bring some people into like the depot. If you're here for 2 hours charging your car, you can have lunch, you can shop, and the idea was the same in New Preston. The
Yeah.
difficulty in New Preston is clearly where the shops are, there's no place to put something like that, and so. It seemed at the time, and I understand their concerns, but it seemed at the time that it's a pretty much. Empty parking lot whenever I go by there, and I've been up there numerous times, and. Telephone pole right there with power, just all seemed to make logistical sense, and they can walk down into. New Preston,
mhm.
you know, there's
No,
a sidewalk I'm just explaining why we thought that was a great site, but I understand their concerns personally, so.
Yeah, I get it.
We'll have to go back and see if we can locate a spot there that makes some sense, that doesn't. You know, there's a talk about doing it up at Lake Warren, get up there, but then you can't really walk down into town and people would just have to sit there, so that wasn't the point for us. The point was to try to attract some people.
No, and I think the other thing here too is, and we've seen this, I've seen it from my office, people pull out of a parking spot by Judy Black Park and pull across the street to Supply Company. They're not inclined to walk anywhere. I see it countless times. It's human nature.
Yeah.
I only did it once, Jim, you could never beat it.
No appointments and resignations. First Selectmen's report. I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen, as the local traffic authority, petition the state DOT to do a traffic study on Route 202 being bookended by Garland Road. I had several residents reach out to me. They're hopeful, and I explained to them, I said, look, we've had limited success with this. When we made the request to reduce the speed limit in front of the White Horse, they shot it down. We did the same request on 109, they adjusted the speed limit and they removed the passing zone. I don't think this is gonna be successful because in that stretch of road, the reason they did it on 109 is you had residential homes that had popped up. There's nothing between Garland Road and the edge, but I think we should ask the state to do a study.
So they're looking to have the speed limit reduced. It's 45 there, I assume.
Yep, and the passing zone eliminated, but that's not our request to.
Your request is a study.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion then.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Oh, I guess I do have one question. So if they come back with something, did they discuss that with us before they implement it? Do we get to hear what their recommendations are?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
They'll-
they just don't all of a sudden show up one day and
Ain't
increase the
allowed.
speed
No.
limit to 10 miles an hour faster.
No, they let us know the results of.
All right, thanks.
Where's the passing zone?
Well, pretty much that whole stretch, if you get to if you're headed to Banham. And you come up the hill and you crest that straightaway, almost that whole stretch is a passing zone.
Yeah.
That's true.
Monday, we were informed that Connecticut Deep had approved the wakeboard ordinance. So that goes into effect. They'll publish it in their boater safety guide in February of 2026, and that puts it into effect then.
Great.
I think that's all I had. Selectmen's reports?
It rained again wherever I went away, so. That's all I'm sorry, it's personal, I appreciate it.
Oh, no, let me go back. Sorry, before we go to Selectmen's, Golf Course Road. Do you both have an opportunity to think about that?
Yes, it's a mess. And I feel bad for those residents, and I think, you know, if there's something we can do about it, I think we should. I get that it's, we don't have to, and I understand why other taxpayers might be upset. But I also think that there's a responsibility, municipal responsibility to take care of homeowners that have been there a long time.
Mhm.
It's not their fault that,
So,
All these long old deeded rights.
Okay,
I don't see it that way, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, that road's been one that's private road's been a private road for years, and if it wasn't taking, it, you know. If it would be a different question if we wanted to start taking it over, but the fact that it's not in shape to take over is, to me, is a problem. I just don't see that. And I don't know where the estimate came from to fix it. What was it, 180,000 or something?
38,000.
Yeah, to fix it. Well, I don't know where you got the estimate from.
The company that the town uses for paving.
Yeah, so,
What Jim recommended.
Yeah.
and is that with what Kevin says you need for drainage and everything? I mean, it just seems. I'd be more willing to take it over if the road was in the shape it should be in,
Well,
paying money on it.
yeah, that, and
I
that wasn't
got a problem with that.
yeah,
It's,
May I interrupt you?
No.
There are three people that are waiting to.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
That's the only thing you can interrupt for.
yeah,
They all have. I think, and again, I'm empathetic to the residents that are up there, but I think it's an impossible sell. And rightly so, because the townspeople, rightly so, would point out, wait a minute, we don't have to pay any of that. The mechanism is in the deed that the club has to pay it.
Right.
Now, that doesn't preclude us from taking over the road when it
Right.
comes up to town specs.
right, that,
I think what that precludes us is from putting any money into it.
and that, I'm
Get it to those
okay,
specs.
yeah, that's pretty much what I'm trying to say.
And that, speaking of the director of public works, he was fine with the town taking it over and his people maintaining it once it was up to specs. And that was the quote that Paul and his team were given to get in the drainage and, you know.
That makes sense.
Does that help you? Let you know what we think.
Well, yeah, we wanted to know before we went to the Board of Finance, and Selectmen would support it.
I can't, Paul, I can't support. This has got nothing to do with taking the road over. This is contributing town money. I can't support that when the mechanism in the deed says, I'd be the first one to get up at a town meeting and said, I sympathize, but it's in your deed.
It's in our deed to keep it in a working like manner, like
Right.
it was a dirt road. Before the subdivision and before the town allowed all those houses and residents to be built there.
Well, I'm not gonna get into an argument about, but it's in the deed, Paul, right? And again, this doesn't impede, if it is repaired, that
Yeah.
the town wouldn't take it over.
Yeah.
I just personally feel can't put funds towards that repair. Selectmen's reports,
Nothing for me.
Yeah, I'm good today.
old business, cell tower. Thank you to all, I see Ken. Ken, can you help with who here online is with the cell tower company?
Sure can, Jim. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. First, I'm Ken Baldwin. I'm with Robinson and Cole, and I represent the Towers LLC. And quickly, for your benefit, the Towers LLC is a joint venture between one of the nation's largest tower companies, Vertical Bridge, and Verizon Wireless. And they have a build-to-suit agreement here in Connecticut for a number of sites, including the site in New Preston. The Towers LLC tonight are represented by Brian Paul and Justine Carbonell, who are on the screen. We also have some members of our team from Verizon Wireless. There's Elizabeth Glidden, I see, and Quason McKitty. Quason is the RF engineer, and Liz is the real estate representative for Verizon. Also, a member of our team, Dean Gustafson, who's with our environmental team at All Points Technologies. Again, also a member of the development team. So we brought them here tonight in case there are any questions that we needed them to answer.
That's great. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, everybody, for attending, and thank you to the residents for coming out. I did want to say, since our last meeting, and we wanted to talk about this, I met with the fire chief, our emergency management director, the police, and the executive director of Litchfield County Dispatch, to find out what this might mean to them. They were all of the same opinion, you know, because that is a dead zone over there for not only cell traffic, but radio traffic.
So that too.
So I just wanted to get, that's a little bit of research that I did.
Where, you got a specific location on that?
No, but they said anything in that area, say prior to Grandpa Snazzy's and up beyond Mount Tom is, you know, like people have had to go back to Rumsey Hall, or, you know, you're in a dead zone. So let me open it up to the folks, the residents that are here. Did you want to ask some questions of the folks online?
Jim, if Jim, if I could interrupt real quickly, we did bring some slides with us, and would it be helpful if we kind of set the stage and kind of walk through the proposal a little bit before you had questions?
Nice to hear from you guys first.
We'll do that. Let me screen share. Okay, whoever's got the slides should be able to share the screen.
Okay. Let me know if you can see those, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, here representing the Towers LLC for the site proposal up in New Preston. Just real quickly, this site, as you may be aware, is under the exclusive jurisdiction of the Connecticut Siting Council. That Siting Council process, that application process started several months ago. We submitted a technical report to the town back on March 19th of this year, which commences the 90-day municipal consultation process. Once that 90-day period ended, we submitted our application to the Siting Council back on July 30th, 2025. The Siting Council has, by statute, 180 days to render a decision on the application from the time that it's filed. They have already set a hearing date of December 4th, 2025, for the application that is pending before them. We are at this point waiting for the Siting Council to issue us interrogatories as a part of their regular practice. Once the application is filed and they deem it complete, which they've already done, they will issue interrogatories requesting additional information from the applicant, which we will respond to at least a week in advance of the first public hearing scheduled for December 4th. I should also point out that on December 4th, they do two things. They hold an evidentiary hearing that commences in the afternoon around 2 o'clock and typically goes till about 5 or 5:30. And then there's the public session, which starts at 6:30 on December 4th. And that is a hearing that is specifically for members of the public who wish to speak and let the Siting Council know their views on the application. I would point out for those folks who are listening who might be interested in speaking that evening, you do need to basically sign up in advance with the Siting Council, let them know you want to speak at that hearing so that they have your name and information. They do not do their hearings in person. They do them via Zoom, much like this. So they need to know in advance who will be on the call and who wishes to speak at that public session. If it's necessary, they will hold additional evidentiary hearings if they can't get everything done that they need to get done at the first hearing date. And those typically are within, the next 3 to 4 weeks, depending upon what their schedule allows. At the end of this process, the Siting Council will deliberate and ultimately issue a decision and order, findings of fact, and an opinion. If the site is approved, the applicant is also then required to develop what they call a development and management plan, a D&M plan, which is akin to a final site plan. So it's a plan that incorporates all of the conditions, if the site's approved, all of the conditions imposed by the Siting Council on the application. It also includes tower design drawings and a foundation design drawing for the proposed site. If all goes according to schedule with the Siting Council approval, and if the site is approved, construction could start as early as spring or summer of next year, just from a timing perspective to give everybody a sense of that. So this is a site schematic that is already a part of the application package that the town has copies of in Town Hall. And this shows the parcel that we're here to talk about tonight at 17 Warren Road. It's about 13.5 acres. And the proposed tower site, as you can see, it is up in this northwesterly portion of the site. Access to the site would extend from Warren Road along that northerly property boundary up the hill to the cell site in this location. This is a 100-foot by 100-foot leased area. The development of the cell site itself would be a 50-foot by 50-foot facility compound. This is sheet Z4 from the design plans that again are a part of the application materials, gives you a little bit more detail on the compound development. This is the 50-foot by 50-foot fenced compound with the tower site in the middle. Verizon's equipment cabinets and a backup generator would be installed within that fenced compound. There's a utility backboard, as utilities would run generally along the access driveway from Warren Road. And you can see these areas here, these rectangles here, which denote areas where additional carriers or emergency service entities might share the facility. There's space built in to the compound and to the tower itself for those entities on the tower. We always show the carrier that is a part of the application, in this case Verizon, at the top of the tower. We show space available for 2 other carriers. It's possible that there might be a 3rd carrier to add below, or again, as you mentioned earlier, municipal fire, Litchfield County Dispatch, if there's a need in this area, as it sounds like there is, to share this facility. It is typical for the siting council to require the applicant to permit those entities to share the tower, which is never really a problem. I've been doing this for a long time, and we've never had an instance where those emergency service or local entities were not permitted to share the tower. And then this is just an antenna orientation plan that shows what Verizon Wireless would install at the top of the tower. Typically, it's 9 antennas, 3 antennas per sector, so that they have full 360-degree coverage around the site. One of the things that we use as a regular piece of evidence to support our siting council application, remember the siting council has to make a determination that there is first a need for the facility, and then they have to evaluate the environmental effects and balance those 2 factors against one another. What we use to bolster our claim that there's a need for the facility are coverage maps that Verizon puts together on a regular basis. And just to give you a sense of what you're looking at, this is a 700 megahertz coverage plot of existing service that Verizon has in the area from its surrounding cell sites. The distinction between the blue and the green is simply a signal strength from those adjacent sites. The blue is a stronger negative 85 dBm signal strength, essentially in building coverage, and the green is a negative 95 dBm in vehicle coverage. The goal is to get, frankly, as a layperson, as much blue as possible, because that's the most reliable signal strength that Verizon can provide. And then what we show in the middle of the plot right here is what we call Washington North 2 site. That's the site at 17 Warren Road at 140 feet. So you see the existing coverage gaps along Route 202. Anything that's not in green or blue today is a gap in service. And then when you go to the next slide, which again are also in the application, you see how that coverage gap is filled in very nicely from the proposed tower site. If you go to the 850 megahertz, which is another frequency band that Verizon would intend to install at this site, the same type of thing happens. There's existing service from surrounding sites, and then when you add the service in from the 17 Warren Road site, It fills in along Route 202, along Warren Road, nicely between the existing Litchfield Southwest location and the existing tower site that Verizon has in Washington today. And then just another example of that, these are Verizon's 5G frequencies in the 3,700 megahertz frequency range. Again, existing coverage and then proposed coverage. So given the ground elevation and the height of these antennas, this tower site does a really good job of filling in the gaps that Verizon Wireless is looking to fill in this area. Kind of akin, Jim, to what you were saying that the emergency service folks are dealing with, which is a genuine lack of service in this area that we're talking about. The last map I wanted to show you, well, again, also a part of the application. We also have to demonstrate to the siting council that we went through a fairly extensive site search process. This map and the accompanying list of sites in the application shows all of the other sites that we looked at in the area to determine if there was something else we should consider. The Warren Road site is up here as number 1, and then all of these other locations correspond to the list behind attachment 8 of the application. And it shows all of the other properties that were researched and were either rejected because the property owner wasn't interested in leasing space to Verizon or the towers. It may not have worked for the RF engineers, or in other instances, we just don't hear back from the property owners once we've inquired. Again, all of this information is currently in the application. It's available in Town Hall. There are multiple copies there in Town Hall from the submission at the end of July. It's also available on the Siting Council's website and can be viewed there. Again, the Siting Council has identified this application as docket number 543. So if anyone wants to go take a look at what the Siting Council has in its application, you can do so by looking up that docket on their pending matters page. I think I'll stop there, Jim, and happy to entertain any questions for me or the entire team.
Great, thank you, Ken. Would Mike?
So, Imad Afuni, I'm one of the local residents, and I do have a question regarding on your diagrams with the service that the tower would provide. I mean, I drive that road every day, and I seem to have seamless service all the way up to the intersection of 202 with 341. And where there's a gap where you lose service for half a mile or less is when you get to the top of Mount Tom. And then there's another cell tower up there where you start to pick up service. So that's my comment when it comes to that increased level of service on that illustration there with the green coverage and the blue coverage. So just want, I'll throw that in there. What about adverse environmental and aesthetic impacts? There are a couple of scenic roads that overlook where the looking down is in the sight of line of where the tower would be. There's there's Rabbit Hill Road and there's Couch Road. And then I believe, I don't know if this is correct, but Romford Road might be considered a scenic road.
I don't think so.
No, okay, so Rabbit Hill Road and Couch Road are considered scenic roads. So what's the take on that? And the third question is, have you explored alternative solutions? Not alternative locations, but alternative solutions. So Verizon's been making a lot of headlines lately with acquiring companies that, acquiring a company that would provide satellite service. Where Verizon's planning on bringing this and providing service to dead zones, beginning 2026. So my concern is, these towers are going up in residential neighborhoods, close to a school, and might become obsolete. As Verizon competes with T-Mobile, who I believe is ahead with satellite service, Verizon's catching up and acquiring this type of technology. Why not explore satellite service versus building more towers?
Jim, do we want to handle these as we go along, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Imad was talking about first the environmental impact and the impact on the vistas, the visual. And then was the potential for the change in technology, the rapid change in technology. Can we speak to that? And I think he brought up too, essentially the health of the surrounding area, the health of the people.
Okay, let me touch on the health effects issues first. Radio frequency emissions from these facilities has been since the Telecommunications Act of 1996 under the exclusive jurisdiction of the FCC. They've established safety standards that companies like Verizon Wireless need to comply with from their base stations. We have included in the application materials to the Connecticut Siting Council a far field calculation, which is a worst case assumption, assuming that all the that the facility is operating at full power on all channels simultaneously, and that all of the energy from those antennas is directed at the ground and somebody standing at the base of the tower. And assuming all those worst case conditions, this facility would operate at less than 10% of the FCC safety standard. And that's the standard we have to comply with. And we've demonstrated that in the application with what's called a far field analysis, which takes into account the power levels and the frequencies that we're operating and all of the frequencies that Verizon Wireless would operate here. As long as we can demonstrate that that facility will comply with those standards, then we've met our burden. And the Siting Council says as a matter of their regular opening statements that that's all they can expect from the applicant. So we've satisfied the burden that we will satisfy the FCC's health effects standards. And based on that, these facilities, and based on all of the data and literature that the FCC has used to establish those standards, we feel that this facility will operate safely and again within those safety standards. As far as the visual effects go, we've included in our application an extensive visual assessment that Dean and his team put together that includes a narrative which discusses those visual effects. It also includes a number of maps and photo simulations. They went out and floated a balloon out there. They took a number of photographs from around the tower site and simulated where that tower might be visible. One of the things the Siting Council will be talking about and asking us about are the potential impacts on scenic roads. So that's a part of that evaluation. And I would offer that to you for a review. And I can tell you that it is something that the Siting Council will continue to ask about. So it's something we need to evaluate as a part of that process, and something the Siting Council will need to include as a part of its findings of no significant adverse environmental effect. Ultimately, that's what we're hoping that they will find. And one of those issues that they will evaluate is impact on visual impacts, including impacts on scenic roads and scenic areas, often including historic districts, historic resources of various kinds. They also evaluate a number of other environmental effects. Dean can speak to those more specifically, but endangered species, wetlands, vernal pools, water courses, all of the typical environmental effects that you might think about as it relates to any other type of development project. The additional visual impacts obviously relate to a structure that in this case is going to be 140 feet tall. But those environmental effects are all, again, are all a part of the Siting Council's review process. On the issue of alternative solutions, I've been doing this for about 32 years now, I think. And for that length of time, people have asked questions about whether satellites are going to be available to replace tower technology. It hasn't happened yet. I think you're right. We're probably getting closer to it than we have been in a while. But my understanding, and perhaps Q, you want to talk about it a little bit more. My understanding is the technology is not quite there yet. I can tell you from a legal perspective, both the Siting Council and a standard lease agreement for these tower sites includes language that basically says, look, if at some point this tower becomes obsolete and you don't need it anymore, you've got to take it down. Property owners insist on that on a fairly regular basis. The Siting Council insists on that as a part of its regular decision-making process. So if we do get to the point and there's an alternative technological solutions and we don't need towers anymore, then you're going to see a lot of towers come down because they're just not necessary. I think we are quite a ways off from relying wholly on satellite technology for this type of terrestrial service. Q, I don't know if you want to comment any further on the idea of satellite technology?
No, there's no further comments.
Okay, thank you.
Ken, can I ask, are you or any of your team aware of any studies being done over the last 25 or 30 years that have studied the economic impact? In other words, bluntly, the property values for the residents that live within a certain area of these facilities?
I've seen studies, Jim. Yeah, I mean they're out there. We don't include them as a part of the application because the Siting Council's review criteria does not allow them to evaluate property values as a part of this process. So we don't include them in our application materials to the Siting Council because it's just not something they consider on a regular basis. I've seen studies that say that there are effects on property values, and I've seen others that claim there's no effect on property values. Anecdotally, there are folks that will say, I'm not going to buy a house if it's adjacent to a parcel that has a cell tower. I was involved in a tower application down in New Canaan, Connecticut, a number of years ago, where people came to the hearing and said, if I had known that there was no cell service where I just purchased my home, I wouldn't have bought the home in the first place. So, again, you hear a lot of information and arguments on both sides of the property values argument. So that's about the best I can offer in response to that.
Thank you. Just give somebody else here an opportunity. Any questions?
Yes, I have.
Sure.
I'm Christina Punier, and I'm also a resident. I have a question more on the wetlands that I think are up there on that property. And that might be for Mr. Gustafson. I did read there was a letter that was sent to the Siting Council by the Council on Environmental Quality. And that letter was actually explaining that their research was showing that the tower, there was a question of restoration of the wetlands because they were going to be affected by the installation of the road and then the tower. And they were recommending to not only do that surface, I think it was 255 square foot, right? Yeah, square foot of temporary to kind of fix the temporary impact, but they were also mentioning a 758 square foot of restoration in that area instead of just a smaller area. I'm just concerned about the wetlands that are on that property and that could be really impacted by it, as well as the wildlife and potential species that are that would be affected by this.
Sure.
And as well as migration patterns, but that's something else.
Sure. Well, let's touch on the first one first. The Connecticut the Council on Environmental Quality, CEQ, is a regular reviewer of Connecticut Siting Council applications of all kinds. So they typically respond to comments, and they did again in this instance, as you mentioned, that information is available on the Siting Council's website. I'm going to ask Dean Gustafson to talk about the wetland and environmental effects associated with the road crossing that is included and referenced in the CEQ comments. Dean?
Great, thank you, Ken. Be happy to address your comment. Good evening, folks. My name's Dean Gustafson. I'm the Director of Environmental Services with All Points Technology. I'm also a professional soil scientist and a certified senior wetland scientist. So as part of the proposed access road, there is an intervening wetland system between Warren Road and the proposed tower facility that does require a crossing. We intentionally directed the design team to position the crossing in the narrowest location of the wetland system to try to minimize wetland impacts, since avoidance is not possible. And so as part of that, and you've referred to the right documents in our filing, we did provide a detailed analysis of the proposed access roads wetland impacts, and then also looked at options for providing mitigation and enhancement to mitigate for those unavoidable impacts. So as part of that, in addition to some of the temporary wetland impacts, which will be restored to pre-disturbance conditions, we do have some unavoidable permanent impacts. And we have reviewed the CEQ comments. We can certainly evaluate the ability to provide additional mitigation opportunities to further offset those unavoidable impacts. And in addition to that, we do incorporate what is coined a wetland protection plan as part of this project. And that includes providing contractor awareness training of the sensitivity of the wetland resources, the need to properly install and maintain erosion and sedimentation controls to minimize any unintentional resource impacts. And as part of that effort to the training that we provide, we also provide regular monitoring during the construction of the facility to make sure that the protection plan is being properly implemented to avoid any additional temporary impacts during construction. Post-construction, these facilities are unmanned. They generate extremely low traffic. The 12-foot gravel access road that will cross the wetland, there'll be a culvert that'll be installed to allow for conveyance of flows to the south as it currently flows today. As far as impeding any possible migratory vectors of amphibians and reptiles that may be utilizing both this wetland corridor and the surrounding terrestrial habitat, there will be no adverse effect to those migratory corridors. These facilities are monitored maybe every 4 to 6 weeks by a technician. So you're talking about very low traffic generation, very low human activities within that area, in that therefore it avoids any type of impact to wildlife migration. Thank you.
He stepped out, but I wanted to get to John Bonnie, but we'll get to him when he gets back. Is there anyone else here or online that has a question?
I've got one question, two actually. Can we get from somebody the siting council information for folks so they know how to sign up for to speak at the hearing? You have that available, folks?
If you, it's really easy. If you go to CT Siting Council, it's all right there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we get that for them, and I'm curious about alternatives. Would one be considered? There's a fairly small area between two existing towers. No augmentation of the existing towers. In other words, I'm guessing that equipment amount, Tom, is the same as when it was put up. You would think the technology would have increased or improved in the use of the range of existing towers to maybe cover that area.
Well, I'll let Q address the existing, but I can tell you that Verizon has been updating its equipment on a fairly regular basis, multiple times a year. So that I would doubt very much that the equipment installed on the Litchfield Southwest Tower, as it's called, is anything like it was when we originally installed it there. Just because of the upgrades that have occurred over the years. So Q, maybe you could speak a little bit about those equipment upgrades and also the optimization that you undertake on the adjacent towers before you go and propose something new.
All right, thanks, Ken. So yes, this is Quason McKitty, representing Verizon. The antenna, the towers around this location has been fully optimized as of date. That includes changing the LTE antennas. That includes adding, the new radios, adding 5G to the towers. So they're fully optimized, which still leaves a coverage gap. In a situation like this, it is because the area is terrain challenged and where the current cell sites are located, regardless of the additional optimization that we've done, there will still be a coverage gap, which requires the new site to be built. Thank you.
No thought, no possibility of those towers going taller.
That is always part of our analysis. These towers, and Ken could speak to this more, it's normally if you go for a tower height increase, it has to go through the siting council again, right, Ken? Correct? Right. So,
That's right.
and all these tower height analysis are done in conjunction with building those sites from day one. So we've identified that even if we go higher, the terrain challenge that is in this area still does not satisfy or justify the tower increase that someone may recommend going, 20 feet taller. The terrain is so challenged in this area that it will still render that site not adequate enough for this area. Thank you.
John, you had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yes, good evening. This is very informative. Yeah, I have a question about, you mentioned a tower. Is it freestanding or guide? Could someone put up a photograph of the actual structure?
Sure, I can go back and share my screen. The tower proposed in this case is a freestanding monopole structure. Let's see, okay. It's the other way. So a freestanding monopole structure with antennas located at the top for Verizon Wireless, but a standard galvanized steel monopole structure like you see, like the one that Verizon built also in Washington, down the road off of Mountain Road, similar to that structure.
Ken, could you show the visuals, the actual visuals of the balloon and then the, I believe that's on the visual assessment document, so that we can actually see it visually instead of the monopole? So people can grasp what it actually looks like from 202, perhaps from the entrance of the Montessori school, and other locations that were taken.
Sure, let me pull that up from the Siting Council visual report and scroll through a few of those, Jim. You're challenging my technology skills here, but I think I've got it. Can you see that now? Okay.
We see the image, yeah.
Okay, so this is from the visual assessment. I've actually got the Siting Council docket pulled up on my website. This is what's called a viewshed map, and it shows the site in the middle. This is again a part of that visual assessment. Here's Route 202, Warren Road going off to the northwest, and these numbers correlate to photo locations that then relate to photos included in the simulation package. And then real quickly, the two colors you see, this orange and then this yellow. Orange identifies an area where there might be what they call seasonal views, where you might be able to see a portion of the tower through the trees during the winter when the leaves are off the trees. And then the yellow areas are areas where you might be able to see the tower above the tree line from these locations surrounding the tower site. This is a computer-generated image. So what Dean and his team do on a regular basis is they then go out and verify with photographs and floating a balloon and taking photographs as to where the tower might be visible from the surrounding public rights of way. And you can see, for example, the tower would be visible above the tree line from photo 9, 11, 16, 17, and I think that's 18, 15, and I'll show you a few of those. So here's some photographs. So here's a photograph number 2 where you get some year-round views. It's at a distance, fairly significant distance away, but you can see the balloon that the arrow is pointing to. And then we've inserted a photo simulation that shows what the top of the tower would look like above that tree line. Again, there are a number of photographs where it's not visible.
Yeah, I would go to photo 9, Ken.
9, okay.
It provides a pretty good representative view from 202.
Okay, so there's a photo of the balloon and then the simulation of the tower from Route 202 and that photo location. It gives you a sense of what you might see above the tree line. You don't see the whole tower, but you see a portion of the tower sticking up above the tree line.
And I'd go to photo 11. Photo 11 is from Route 202 by the entrance to the Montessori School.
Okay, so that's that same photograph that Dean was referring to and the simulation at that location.
When I drive down from Mount Tom, coming down there, I see the hill. I mean, I
Let me go
live
to 15. Yeah, so this is as you're heading toward the tower site on 202, you see the sign for the junction of 341 Warren Road. It shows that location here looking back toward the tower site, and there's another view where you're going to see a portion of the tower above the tree line from that location.
Well, you know, that your tower is 80 feet above the tree line, the top of the trees. I mean, trees grow to 60 feet. So I mean, that's really hard to see on this drawing, but you know, visually, when you come down, you're gonna see this. This is major, especially when you're outfitted with a whole bunch of other you know, dishes and stuff, you know, I mean, it kind of reminds me when I go down to New York and stuff, and they have the cell towers there,
The Hutch-
and they put branches on that stuff, right?
That's the
I mean,
worst.
Really,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't disguise it.
Miss, you had a question before, I'm sorry. Okay.
I have another question. I have a question actually more about the process. You showed the balloon, and I think the balloon floated in March, is that correct? March or April?
Yes, that's correct.
We were in the same case with the same property about 14 years ago, and I remember the abutting neighbors did get a letter that was informing that the balloon was gonna be floating so that they could have an idea of where it was. Did you send that letter as well to inform the abutting neighbors? I'm just.
No, we did not, we didn't provide notice. We're not required to provide notice, but we didn't provide notice of the balloon float prior to doing so. We did provide notice to the abutting landowners of the application being filed with the siting council, but not of the balloon float.
the balloon float, that was in April, that's correct, again?
Yeah,
And
April
then-
25th of this year, correct?
And then the abutting neighbors got, their first communication in July.
No. That was just, I think it was in September, end of September, I got that letter from you.
No, well, the technical report was delivered to the town in March. The balloon was floated in April and the visual assessment was produced for the siting council application, which we filed at the end of July. The process requires the applicant to notify abutting property owners and municipal officials prior to the filing of the application, which is what we did. And then again, in that preceding 90 days, if the municipality deems it appropriate, we provided the technical information. There can be some additional inquiry at that time. But you're right, the only notice that we provided to abutters was just prior to the filing of the application.
So just to clarify, you're not required to submit to the abutting neighbors prior to floating the balloon?
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Sure.
Any other option besides satellites, any relay boxes that can be put between those two cell towers? I've heard that something existed, but I don't know if it has been in place anywhere.
The siting council typically asks that very question. They refer to it as small cell technology. Verizon does use small cell technology when it's appropriate. And typically you're talking about an antenna and a radio that is on a utility pole, 25 to 30 feet above the ground. It's got a very limited coverage footprint. It typically will only cover the road area where the pole is located. It's in and amongst the trees, so it's often the signal from those small cell facilities is often further limited by existing tree cover. So what you end up seeing is a need, if you try and get small cell coverage to cover the same overall area that a tower site like this would cover, you'd be looking at small cells, a number of small cells within many hundreds of them. And in most cases, it's just not possible because there aren't telephone poles everywhere, certainly not on private property. And the ones that exist on the main roadways, again, are just going to see service on those main roadways and not much beyond them. So it's not, and Q, I'm just speaking from past understanding, feel free to jump in if you like, but our experience has been that it's not a replacement technologically. You'd have hundreds of these small cells around and you still wouldn't get the overall coverage that the carrier is looking for in this instance, given the topography, given the tree cover in the area, and given the way the roads wind around that topography.
Hi, thank you. This is very helpful. I had two questions. One was in that study where you showed that it was the minimum of 10% or less of that exposure or negative effect, where you weren't exceeding that limit. I was curious, does it, and then maybe this is for my own research, but does different materials like a metal roof versus an asphalt roof reflect differently on those effects? And then the other question was, what's changed since the last time this process was started and rejected? Thank you.
I can't speak to the prior process. We weren't involved in that process. I do remember it starting, and I think if it did go forward, Verizon probably would have engaged. Why that? I don't know that that process, that application, that proposal was rejected. I don't think it ever got to the siting council. I think it went away before going to the siting council, is my understanding. So I can't speak too much to why that process never went forward. Oftentimes when the carrier in that case was AT&T, so we'd have to have them at the table to understand why that one went away. I did pull up, I said less than 10% on the FCC calculation that we provided. It's actually 2.8%. So just barely, almost 3%. So even below the 10% I mentioned earlier. And again, that calculation doesn't assume any attenuation by building materials, roof structures, any types of roof materials. It assumes somebody is standing on the ground at the base of the tower and all the antennas are pointing at that point on the ground. And it's still 2.8%. If you start adding tree cover and building materials, that equates to more attenuation. So I think, I don't know that we could calculate for that, but it would involve an exposure level of significantly lower than that 2.8%.
Anyone else?
I have one more question. If there was to be a building or a property that was under like on a historic registry, how far does the tower need to, how far does the tower need to be from a historical site?
Typically, the evaluation, the area of potential influence is a half mile. And the
Okay.
preliminary historic resources map that we included, again, in the application that you can find on the website. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dean, but there are no historic resources within that half mile APE.
That's correct. So, in that analysis with the Connecticut State Historic Preservation Office, that office does not have like a restrictive zone with respect to distances from historic properties to towers. They could be fairly close to historic property, but they would evaluate those potential effects, and we'd address those through different mechanisms. But in this particular case, as Ken correctly noted, there are no historic properties or resources within a half mile, which is the typical study area SHPO office requires us to analyze.
Thank you.
Anyone else online or in person?
I'd like, hi, I just want to say that I'm Sunday Fisher. I'm the board chair at Washington Montessori School. And my first question is this the Q&A or is this just a presentation at the first select meeting? Because I didn't come prepared with questions. I thought this was just a select meeting and a presentation to the selectmen.
No, it's Q&A. That's why we have the representatives here Sunday for the cell tower.
Will the town be holding a town hall or a specific special meeting regarding the tower?
I don't know, Sunday. I don't know if there's enough time. I don't know if we don't have the capability. We'd have to have all of the tower team here in person because we don't have the capability to do a virtual meeting in the town hall room.
So can we request that?
Ken, would you and your team be willing to come out?
Would like to request a formal special meeting done here at the town hall, so that folks like Sunday Fisher and others can ask further questions.
Well, let's see if we can, if they're willing to come out, we can try to arrange
I
something.
mean, we can.
I'd also just like to correct something that I believe to not actually cite our interest level. I think in the alternative sites, it says that Washington Montessori School, we were approached. We did invite Verizon and the towers in to get a better understanding, but we did not consider at the board level taking a lease. It is not something that we would do on our property. And just let you guys know that the Board of Trustees is looking into this tower to understand its impact on our community, to understand its potential health and environmental impacts on our school community. And we intend to participate in the process as we continue our research and evaluate implications for our campus and our environment.
And you may not be able to answer this now, but it sounds like what I'd like to do is to set up a time that your team could come out. And if it can't be done physically, I'll get Ed Advance down to do an IT thing.
Yeah.
We did terror vigilance.
Yeah, would you be willing to come back online? An evening meeting?
Yeah, I thought that's what this was, Jim, but that, yeah, I think the short answer is sure. We're happy to provide as much information as we can. We are running short of time. The hearing is coming up in December, but we still have a couple months or just short of a couple months to answer some more questions. I think we're happy to answer as many questions as we can in advance. I think that frankly, that helps us in the long run, because if we can answer some of those questions up front, then folks might not feel as strongly about needing to appear before the Siting Council, but that certainly is up to them. But I think the short answer is yes, we can certainly come back if you want to do a more formal notice process for folks. We're here. We're not going anywhere.
We can make that happen relatively quickly. So, quick. John, do you have a question? You're muted, John.
Just as people ask questions and questions are answered. So this is private property, that the proposed site. What is the lease payment on that from Verizon to that owner?
That's not something we share, John. That's private information between the Towers LLC and the property owner. We can tell you that the lease term is typically 25 years. And can be extended within that period, but we don't share lease payment information.
So you basically negotiate your lease with the owner on an
That's right.
individual basis. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, Verizon, neither Verizon nor the Towers LLC is a public service company, so we don't have the ability to take property by eminent domain as some public service companies do. We have to rely on individual property owners' willingness to come and talk to us and ultimately agree to a lease. And that's what happened in this case.
I think we absolutely have to do this, and for a variety of reasons, but when Sunday came on and said, if you go on the Siting Council's website and you look at the application and you go through it, it appears that Montessori School offered up 3 different locations, and what she's saying is not the case.
Not the case. Jim, I'm a little curious, and maybe this will help everybody, it will certainly help me, of the process here. It seems like this it turned into a Q&A, but it was an informational meeting by Verizon. The people who may really be objecting to this, their best course is with the Siting Council, correct, at that hearing. So I think that, having another informational meeting with Verizon might be helpful, but I'm not sure, because, they wanna put up a tower. They're gonna give you information about the tower. Finding out for the public's, what their process is and their best course of action to find out how to maybe object to this and where that gets heard would be at that hearing, would it not?
So the Siting Council.
Well, Siting Council hearing, so I'm sort of thinking, maybe both are good, for sure both are good, but we're gonna ask the same questions, we're gonna get the same answers. It's not leading to a conclusion for you folks. They're not gonna get anything here that's gonna tell you.
They're not doing it.
I understand that, Dean. I do think it's important though to have another one to give an opportunity for a broader audience.
Agreed. I agree with
that
that.
might be beyond the residents. And again, to what was just brought up here, gives everyone an opportunity to have a Q&A, to,
I don't disagree with that at
Then
all.
we can submit,
Right.
individuals can submit testimony to the siting council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
I understand there's a schedule, leading up to December 4th. But if more people were aware of this
sure,
6 months ago, not in the dead of
Mhm.
summer, when people are on vacation in August, that they get the notification of an application, and then school starts up and people are busy with their kids going back to school. So, yeah, if we had more time, I understand, we could have started this months ago, and been more prepared and more input and more community involvement. So I think having a meeting, I think will help, everybody.
Sure, agreed. Blake, did you have a question?
You're on mute.
You're muted.
Am I on?
There you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yep.
Yes,
Yes.
you can hear me. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Blake Levitt. Hi, Ken Baldwin. I haven't seen you in a very long time. How are you?
I'm well, Blake. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm hanging in. I have some environmental questions to ask, and I'll probably have some follow-up questions if you're going to do another meeting. But I took a look at the application. I live just over on the other side of the hill in the town of Warren from this particular site. And I took a look at the application. I didn't study it too terribly closely. But the thing that I noticed, and I think that my question is probably directed to Dean Gustafson, it had to do with what seemed to me, Dean, I'm a medical and science journalist. It seemed to me that there was an absence of wildlife inventory having to do with the wetlands. There was some remediation for turtles, if for wood turtles, for instance, if they were encountered to be moved off site. It didn't look like that was going to be a daily inspection the way it was. I remember the AT&T site plan for this. Deep came out and did a whole remediation plan for wood turtles, and it was more of there was more significant wildlife inventory that was done, and there was more protective measures that were taken for wood turtles. I believe that they're registered on that site as well. I did see that there are two endangered bat species there, one both state and federally listed. I'm assuming that you got that from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service inventory. I'm wondering, did you do any kind of actual wildlife inventory there yourself, or are you just working for databases? What were you doing?
So first and foremost, we did consult with the Natural Diversity Database, the Wildlife Division of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. The actual property is not located within NDE buffer area. It's located nearby, but we did go through a formal consultation, and we did receive an official determination letter that was issued December 7th of 2024 that indicated that there were no rare species on or in the vicinity of this site. So there is no documented references to wood turtle on this property. And as such, we have no type of protection plan for that species because there are no records that it exists. There's actually for wood turtles, you typically wouldn't find them on this property. It doesn't have suitable habitat. We did do some habitat-based assessment for wildlife during our investigations of the property. So with respect to wildlife impacts, we did evaluate it with respect to the wetland crossing and impact area. And then through our consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, which was mainly done through their online IPAC system and various determination keys, we did evaluate the site. The site does have the potential for bat habitat for listed northern long-eared bat and proposed listed tricolored bat species. To avoid potential impact of those bats, there's a time of year restriction for tree clearing. So with that, there'll be no adverse effect to those listed bat species. We did evaluate the site for bog turtle and determined that it would have no effect on bog turtle. A formal phase 1 bog turtle habitat survey was provided by Dennis Quinn of Quinn Ecological. He's listed as a U.S. Fish and Wildlife qualified herpetologist and concluded that the site does not support bog turtle habitat, and the agency agreed with our findings.
Okay, so Deep is fairly clear about the fact that their wildlife inventory is it's not something that they go out and readily do, and they readily admit that their database is extremely incomplete unless it's reported to them what's actually there. And so would you be willing to actually do a full wildlife inventory of that site? And not just rely on the database? There's
So
pretty
we,
sensitive stuff. There's pretty sensitive stuff going on in there. And as far as wood turtles are concerned, they're known to winter over in the bottom of the Chippewa River, which is certainly within walking range of what bog turtles or what wood turtles go and do. And so it is actually a likely habitat for them, despite what Deep might say. And like I said, they are very clear about their inventory not being complete or necessarily up to date. And it's not that easy to report to them unless you're a licensed wildlife biologist, as you are, and a wetland specialist. And so you would actually be helping them if you would actually go out there and do some more comprehensive inventory and go and register it with them so that they would actually know what's in this immediate neighborhood, especially regarding that wetlands there.
yeah, I mean, we're confident with the analysis that we've completed and our consultation process with both state and federal wildlife agencies. So
Okay, all right,
Well-
I understand, you're not gonna do that. My next question has to do with the remediation for the limiting of tree cutting out there. I believe, what did that say on the website? No tree cutting, taking those endangered bat species into consideration between April and October 31st. So when are you gonna be doing this tree cutting in order to even get in there if you're not starting until the spring of 2026?
So that's correct. Right now, we have a time of year restrictions. No tree clearing would occur between April 15th and October 31st. So that
So
would
when
have
you
to be
plan-
dovetailed into the project schedule. So to avoid that type of disturbance.
Well, but you were talking about doing it in the spring and the summer, so where in the spring is that gonna happen? Any idea?
That's going to be driven by the project schedule. If they want to start construction within that restrictive period, they would need to drop the trees before April 15th of 2026.
Exactly, and if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't work within the schedule, would that delay it for a year? Or at least delay it until until November 1st of 2026, the start of the project?
Yeah, if they don't have the trees cleared before April 15th, they would not be able to start tree clearing until November 1st.
Okay, okay. Thank you. There's a possibility that some other licensed wildlife biologists might come in and they wouldn't be able to get onto that particular property, but they might be able to get some wildlife inventory that would guide you a little better in terms of what you need to protect there in the construction process if the application is approved. So that's being looked into by some people. I also wanted to ask you a question having to do with exposures. The MPE that you have listed, and Ken, you can address this too. I saw that the MPE was really just at the base of the tower. I also looked at the distance measurements that were in such fine print. I had to read them with a magnifying glass on my computer. I saw that you did some distance relationships. It's well known, even in the siting council's graphics show that maximum exposures, where exposures hit the ground from the main lobes in any case, happen between 500 and 600 feet out. I also wanted to ask, with the hilly terrain, if there were any calculations done for lateral exposures to the surrounding hills. And also another engineering question for Q. I think Bill Pollock had brought up the issue of metal roofs. I think he was trying to ask you a question about potential hotspots within that immediate area for RF. The MPEs from the FCC, anybody that's involved with this understands that that there are different considerations depending on where you measure from. And so that was my question, having to do with lateral exposures and also about different distance ratios where the exposures actually do increase according to even to your specs.
Yeah, if the benefit of the far field table that we included is it gives you those percentages at the various distances. And although we talk about a worst case scenario where someone is getting the maximum exposure from those antennas, the distance where the facility is at that 2% of the FCC standard is at a significant distance from the structure itself. I'm just trying to have the same problem with reading the small numbers as you did, Blake. But it appears to be, Q, help me out here. I'm looking at the far field table. In this table, the 2.06% appears to be at a distance of about 85 feet.
That's correct.
So a lot closer. And then as you get further away from the tower site, those numbers drop down. The 2.14%, perhaps this is what you were referring to, is at a distance of 372 feet from the antennas. So again, the number that we provided in there is the worst case number at that distance, and it correlates to the distances in that table, as challenging as they can be to read. 2.69%, for example, at 561 feet, 2.4% at 674 feet. But I think the important thing, as you know from your experience, is that we're still talking about the worst case number of 2.69%, which is well below what the FCC has established for a safety standard. So
Yeah, I get all
regardless of
that,
the
but then
distance.
but then you get into the issues of how protective the FCC standards actually are, and whether that 2% ratio is actually protective of anybody's health. But we're not going to go there because it can't be taken into consideration anyway. So I did have another question for Q. Ken, when you were talking before, you were saying that the 5G frequency was 3 point something megahertz. Did you mean gigahertz?
I said 3,700 megahertz, with 3.7
Megahertz.
gigahertz, right? Q, you want to clarify that?
It's gigahertz, right?
Not
3.7 gigs.
3.7 gigs, which
Yeah, gigs.
if I do
Okay, okay.
if I do my math right, that's 3,700 megahertz.
37 meg is 3.7 gig.
Right.
Okay. And Q, would you address the lateral exposures? Was any of that calculated at all, given the topography in that immediate area? And what about hotspots having to do with metal roofs? A lot of the buildings back there have metal roofs. I think that's what Bill Pollock was thinking of asking.
So if I understand the question clearly, you're talking about vertical obstruction of the tower. The tower is going to be 140 feet tall.
Right. Right. What's the topography?
So the topography I'm not 100% certain on. You're talking about the tree height, not a certain on. However, as pointed out by the CD drawing that Ken showed, you can see that the tower is roughly 80 feet. Ken, just correct me there if I'm keep me honest. Is around 80 feet above the tree clutter, right? So that being said, the consideration that we're looking at here as it relates to the feet, as in where you're standing, 6.56 feet. That's the average height, so to speak, of where someone needs to stand to where a antenna is located to be impacted by, the radio emission. That being said, yes, Vertical is taken into consideration. We consider any structure that could potentially be serviced, right? I know this is more referenced in trees and so forth, but when you reference to, you know, a light pole that may be in the area, that is taken into consideration, right? So vertical obstructions for any uncontrolled area, right? It is occupational or non-occupational, general pop. It is taken into consideration. It is severely, extremely studied as part of our, even after the siting council approves our site, hopefully, that study is still done as part of the FCC guidance as well. So it's not just we do pre and post. Hopefully that answers the question.
No, I was thinking more in terms of some of the main lobes that are coming out that might be hitting buildings on the steep topography of houses on hillsides. I was thinking more in terms of that kind of an exposure. As you note, the topography is really challenged in there. I don't think any, I didn't see any calculations for exposures like that. I'm just wondering if it came into your factory.
Like without having a particular location, I mean, we could, there'd be a correlation, of course, to the distances shown in the far field table. But
Right.
I suppose, you know, if you had a particular structure at a particular location and ground elevation, we could do the calculation based on the antenna height, overall
Right.
AMSL, and figure out what that is. But it's hard to speak generally about that,
Okay.
other than to point back to the distances in the far field table.
Okay. And I've had what I think is one last question.
Blake,
It
excuse
also
me.
has,
Blake, excuse me, last question, okay? Blake, you need to unmute. You're muted. You're still muted. There you go.
no, there I go. Okay, one last question. I think this is also for Q. The maximum permissible exposures you said were for all channels. About how many channels are there per antenna, and about how many channels total for all frequencies that will be transmitting?
We'll speak to the technology, which is what we consider 700 LTE, 850, 1900 PCS,
Yeah,
AWS
yeah.
2100.
Yeah.
And aforementioned 5G 37 megahertz.
Yeah.
3700, sorry.
Yeah. I'm trying to find out how many channels per antenna that's transmitting, and I'm wanting to know how many channels per antenna, and how many channels total for all frequencies that will be transmitting. Do you have a total number for me? It goes to the technology itself.
That could be something we can provide at the follow-up meeting, just so I
Okay.
fully understand the question and I answer it correctly, so that you know.
Yeah.
Can
I'm
just
also
take that down for me.
Got it.
I'm also going to have some follow-up questions having to do with transmission characteristics down the line, but we can save that for another time. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the time, Jim.
You're welcome. Ken, thank you, you and your team. We appreciate you coming out, and I'll be in touch tomorrow morning first thing about rescheduling.
Thanks, Jim. And can I also offer to Ms. Fisher, if you have any questions that you want to pose to us directly, we're happy to take them offline. I can certainly send you my contact information. Happy to take your questions in advance of the next meeting and either speak privately or be prepared to answer those at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Jim.
Next item was a proclamation, America 250. This came down, obviously, next year is the 250th anniversary of the birth of our nation. And this came from the federal, state level. There's towns all over the country. Thank you, folks.
You're not staying.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, that's
Thank you
fine.
so much.
Thank you very much.
So it says,
Can I get his, whatever email address, so I can ask him a question?
sure, can you give me a call in the office tomorrow?
Sure,
I'll give it to you. No,
thank you.
Whereas the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the formation of the United States of America will occur on July 4th, 2026, and whereas Washington, founded in 1779, has contributed proudly and significantly to the history of our nation and our state for more than 246 years. Whereas in 2016, the United States Congress established by joint resolution the America 250 Commission to encourage observance of the 250 years of our nation's existence. And whereas the governor established Connecticut's commission with Executive Order 22-02, and the commission has determined its mission and purpose is to develop, encourage, and execute an inclusive celebration, commemoration, and observance of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence through civic, cultural, and historical education events and programming. And whereas the commission will enhance tourism, economic development, history and civic education, historic preservation, and outdoor recreation. And whereas American 250 Connecticut will engage Connecticut residents in all 169 municipalities, excuse me, through local 250th committees and affiliate organizations through its culmination in 2028. And whereas preserving, studying, and enjoying state history strengthens communities, builds pride, and forges bonds between Connecticut residents as we work together toward the goal of equality and recognition of the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas it is appropriate that Washington engages fully with our past and looks towards a shared future. And whereas the First Selectman and the Board of Selectmen of Washington thus encourage its citizens to create and participate in programs that will commemorate the history of our town, our state, and our nation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen do hereby proclaim that Washington will fully engage in commemorative activities leading up to and through July 4th, 2026. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I think I developed that.
Jay's got 1,000 yards. I'm sorry, I didn't write that.
I know. What was the thing about through 19? I thought you said something
Well,
about 2028 or something.
Yeah, 169 municipalities, committee affiliate organizations through its culmination in 2028, but
What is,
the
2 years there.
we don't need 2 years.
the commemorative activities
Are gonna culminate on,
leading up to and through July 4th, 2026.
I appreciate you're trying to explain that to me, but I still don't understand it, but I mean,
Talk to Michelle.
I mean, it's a good thing to celebrate, absolutely, so.
All in favor? Aye. Visitors.
I know it's time, it's late, but these are two very quick questions.
Sure.
I have a neighbor that knows I'm on the zoning commission, and she came to me with a question. I said, it's not zoning, but I will bring it up at this meeting. I live behind the shops in New Preston, and I always come out by Plain Goods.
Mhm.
And then turn right and go to 202, but she and many people come the other way and come out between the stores.
Right.
So this is a picture. She said that she has almost been hit numerous times by
Yeah.
cars because there is a line there, but it's not marked, do not park. And it's also, you can see, I don't carry a phone all the time. And so I have seen them all the way to here and out further. And this is a car going by. I couldn't take it fast enough, but when cars are coming flying down from the lake and you're trying to turn right, it could be an accident because these cars, this white line.
They need to call the police as soon as they see something
Well,
like
they
that.
called your office maybe 3 months ago and they don't know who they talked to, but they said, call the DOT at Department of Transportation. They said it's not their problem to call you all. And I'm just wondering who,
It's their road, but they have to call the police, Susan.
the police, because if it were marked with X's, yellow X's.
They won't, the state won't do that.
Why?
They're the state, they do, I don't know why.
I
but
mean,
they-
can
you
the
need-
policeman?
No, you need to call the police and the police can tell them you can't park there.
Oh,
But
they're
I-
there every day. I mean, if there's not enough policemen to come, they're there every day. And they're out.
That same car or other people you mean all
Well,
the
here,
time? I know what you mean. I've been there plenty of times and tried to
Well,
make
I
that
just wanted
corner.
to see how they're over the
Yeah,
line
yeah.
and out. And it's dangerous when you're trying to turn right, look this way, and they're flying down. So Just call the police each time they see it.
Ugh.
Is that the answer?
It's because DOT.
Well, if they want them to move, that's the only way they're gonna move. I mean, I don't want people to go up to people and say, move your car.
And there's
You
no way
need
to put a sign up, no parking?
It's a state road. Susan,
So why wouldn't Department of Transportation be involved
they would be.
to put up a
If they
do not
want them to
parking
put the
sign?
sign, yeah,
Yeah, a do not parking
Right.
sign, just on the, right there on the curb.
correct.
So she should go back to them.
It's their road.
Okay, okay.
What was your second
My
question?
second question is, Ann Albritton met with you last week. She's a neighbor of mine, but she's out of the country. And she said you would, bring it up with some folks Monday night, I believe, at the economic council meeting, or you would bring it up with somebody. I just wonder if there's
Bring up.
any update to tell her when she
The
returns.
petition about the.
About the
you brought
EV
it up
charger.
Oh,
today.
here at the beginning?
No, she-
Oh, we talked about it tonight, and we talked about it Monday night. So we're gonna look at alternatives.
I was only like 1 minute late. You've already talked.
Well, we're fast.
We're still ahead of public agenda.
Okay, so what,
We're gonna look at other alternatives.
right, that's great, because it would be 100 yards from my window and. It just, I think it would depreciate the values of the homes to have that.
We're gonna look at other alternatives.
Right, okay.
Thanks, Susan.
That's-
John, did you have a question?
Yes, two things. About the, well testing at the transfer dump. It's my understanding that the last results were 2012.
I'd have to look to be sure,
Yeah.
John.
So, well, they're currently being tested, is that correct?
No,
Or they're not going to be tested before the purchase?
oh, they're going to be tested. They're not currently being tested.
Oh, all right, they should be. So will that information be published?
Oh,
before
yeah,
Special
we'll have
meeting?
that. Yeah, that's, yep.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, with all the things that are coming up and for people to get background, the minutes of the selectmen's meetings are posted relatively quickly. But the videos are like 2 months in the rears. Is there any way that those can be put up a little bit sooner? So people
Maybe, we'll look into it.
say that?
Maybe, we'll look into it.
Yeah, who's responsible for that?
The town is.
Is there a particular reason why it takes 2 months to have the minutes?
Oh, I said we look into it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead. Hi, Susan. Executive session,
Make a motion, we enter executive session to discuss a real estate matter.
second, favor. Aye, thank you.
Oh, boy, I'm sorry, you have to still be here. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mary Ann.